right, welcome to episode 23 of Julian's Lightroom. And if you're not watching the video, it might be good to know that today's episode is a little bit different. Right now, I am out walking in a forest. I found out a really cool way to use all my equipment to be able to film and record and be moving while recording a podcast. And I thought it was such a cool idea. You know, there's all these podcasts going on. Everyone's sitting down. Everyone's sitting in one spot. And especially this podcast where I like to talk about movement pretty frequently. Doesn't it make sense to also be moving in a varied terrain out in nature? So it'll be a bit of a different sound to this, I imagine. You'll probably hear me huffing and puffing a little bit. I might pass by some people. I probably will. And yeah, it's just going to be the different nature of today's episode. While we're in nature, what a cool thing. It's amazing what technology can do. And I'm just thinking about how funny this would probably look happening upon someone holding all this gear out here. But, you know, I'd rather do this than be inside of my basement. It's a beautiful day out here, and we got beautiful places to walk around. So, what am I talking about today? Why did I want to make an episode? Well, we're trying to stay consistent, number one. And I've also been having this kind of conceptual idea float around in my mind for a little while. What's new? Julian's thinking about concepts? Oh my gosh. But this one is kind of relevant to what's going on right now, at least with my feet. And it's kind of this idea of acute discomfort versus chronic discomfort and how they appear in our lives and how we make choices to avoid discomfort in both of these ways. And a really good example right now is I'm walking with no shoes. I got my bare tootsies out on the path, and for a lot of people I know, this isn't really an option. This isn't something they would choose. This might even be something that they think is outside of their realm of possibility. Some of these reasons being I could stab my foot on something. I might step on something sharp. I might stub my toe. My feet might get cold, etc. Now, am I some kind of special person where none of this happens? No. All the above happen. I'm always stubbing my toe. I'm always stepping on sharp things. There is a lot of what I would call acute discomfort that happens when I'm walking without shoes. Now, why have I made this decision? Well, it's because I hold the belief, and this is where it becomes, you know, kind of a personal experience, but I hold the belief that for me, taking this calculated risk in exposing my feet to acute discomfort, so short-term immediate discomfort, stubbing the toe, is worthwhile because what I gain, I believe to be, is the avoidance of chronic discomfort. And for me, that's the ideal discomfort to avoid. But also the chronic discomfort of spending years outsourcing the strength of my foot to shoes. So it's my personal belief that it's in my best interest of not just my feet, but my entire body's health to expose my feet to the stimulus of uneven terrain or maybe even some sharp objects or stubbing my toe every now and then. And so for me, that's one way that I can be willing to expose myself to acute discomfort in favor of avoiding chronic discomfort. Now, we can apply this to so many different things because even, there's a butterfly. I'm definitely going to get distracted like a lot while I'm filming this. But even right now while I'm filming this, I have to overcome somewhat of an acute discomfort, which is me feeling like a goofy walking around in the forest with all this technology oh no, people are going to see me. What are they going to think? What if I can't like remain on a train of thought while people are walking by, blah, 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 all this nonsense. I'm exposing myself to that because a chronic version of that discomfort would be I'm always self-conscious and I'm not going to create because I'm afraid of what people are going to think, or I'm afraid of being seen. And so it's a very similar idea to the concept of immediate and delayed gratification. It's almost a form of delayed gratification because the gratification that I feel for putting myself in scenarios where I might feel a little bit self-conscious or insecure, it's not going to be this like big immediate blast of dopamine. It's going to be a little bit more gradual and long-term, and it's really just going to change kind of who I am as a person, which is the idea. The idea is to actually change my overall and long-term comfortability with being seen, speaking my mind, and creating the kind of things that I'd like to create. And so there's a lot of nuance that comes with this idea of exposing oneself to acute discomfort in favor of avoiding chronic discomfort. And so I'll detail this with exactly what I'm doing right now because, by walking through the forest with no shoes, it really is a calculated risk, if you will. And there's a lot of intention behind it. Number one, I know more or less how much my feet can handle. I have a pretty good understanding of how rugged they are, how resilient they are, and what kinds of terrains I can walk relatively comfortably over without having to worry or think too much. Or have to sacrifice, relative speed, because there are some terrains that I can walk on barefoot and I can handle it, but my speed is like severely limited. And if I'm walking with other people, that can be, maybe not ideal if we're trying to spend time together. I also know this trail relatively well, so I have a decent idea of what kinds of surfaces to expect myself to be walking on and how challenging it's going to be. Knowing that, I know that there will be some acute discomforts here. I might step on a stick that I don't see, or I might stub my toe on a root, or I might not, because I'm getting better at those things. But combine that all with my belief that it's worthwhile for the health of my entire system to be exposing my feet to these different kinds of terrains, then that gives me a pretty good motivation, justification, and understanding for being willing to walk around here without shoes. So I think it's worth stopping every now and then and appreciating these areas that I get to walk around in. We got this beautiful river here, cute little bridge to stand on. It's not flowing super heavy, but we got some water in here. See some frogs in here sometimes. It's just a beautiful day. And I love being able to have the shade of the forest combined with the sunlight for both a little bit of that warmth and a little bit of that cool. Now we're about to head up a legit set of stairs, so you might hear a little bit of huffing and puffing, but we're going to make it happen. Back chain online. And if we start to think about it, there really are all kinds of ways that this concept can be applied. And oftentimes, what keeps us in these small, weakened, insecure, or unhealthy states is our aversion to acute discomfort. But what I think is worth acknowledging is that aversion to acute discomfort is completely natural. It's a total human response to have. And there's nothing wrong with having it, but having the awareness to understand how that can influence your experience is what's really important. So at the end of the day, it's awareness. And then with that awareness, we're empowered to make the choices that we want to make. Holy moly. I gotta do some cardio, dude. I'm breathing too heavy for a podcast right now. But this is real life. And I'm out here moving around. What are you doing? Are you sitting? It's not about that. I'm not better than you. It's not about that. But this is what's going on. I'm breathing heavy, I'm walking around. I'm even experiencing the avoidance of acute discomfort right now as I walk away from other people on the trail in favor of solitude, so that way I can keep my mind on track. But again, aversion to acute discomfort. A really great example that I like to think of is you touch the stove and it's hot. You burn yourself. You go, okay, don't touch that. It's hot. It's hot right now, and it's hot for a short time. Your skin will heal. In 30 years, you'll be fine. But is there more to gain from touching the stove again? Just to simply expose ourselves to acute discomfort? Not really. Not unless you think it's valuable for you to just expose yourself to acute discomfort just to be more comfortable with it. But it's not really it's not really there's not too much integration from that practice that at least I can come up with right now. So if I'm wrong, please send me a message and let me know. But the examples that I gave earlier make a little bit more sense because there's a little bit more purpose to them. There's a little bit more long-term gain from exposing oneself to acute discomfort. And so, maybe we can ask ourselves, or I can ask myself, why? Oh, check this out. We made it to W2. If you know what that is, drop it in the chat. I don't know where I am. We're just out here. Just out here in the freaking woods. It's beautiful. But maybe we can think of some other ways that I don't know if you just saw my knees buckle because I stepped on something. Did not feel good, but we're still here. Maybe we can think of some other ways in which experiencing or exposing ourselves willingly and intentionally to acute discomfort can be beneficial to us. I would say a really great example of this is in the realm of communication, and especially communicating within long-term familial friendships, intimate romantic relationships, and conflict resolution. Exposing yourself to acute discomfort, which is having the uncomfortable conversation now, is generally going to be more ideal than, oh, dang, I got to put a pause on this because I just pulled up on some turkey feathers all over the place. Someone had a meal. That's pretty freaking cool. Normally I might take one, but they're not that cool looking. Much like body feathers. Sweet. We're in nature. Yeah, generally it's going to be favorable to have an uncomfortable conversation sooner than later. Otherwise, you keep widening the door for resentment to walk in and get comfy and start getting big. And that's a chronic discomfort. That's something that hangs over you. And that's something that stays with you from day to day to day to day if you continue to try and shield yourself from the acute discomfort of having a conversation in the moment. And so, again, there is nuance to all of this, because if we're going to have a somewhat uncomfortable conversation with someone about something important, and hopefully with the intention of keeping the relationship healthy and loving, you don't just go into that conversation swinging, you know? You got to go into that conversation carefully and intentionally, and hopefully not too emotionally riled up. And that can help create the kind of space that you need to be able to go into something uncomfortable but come out unscathed and having strengthened a little bit. So again, it's not just exposure to discomfort for the sake of it, but it's a skillful engagement with discomfort and with intention. And I had thought of an analogy yesterday to help me understand this, what I call like a skillful way, or an artistic way, or a loving way of exposing ourselves to the right amount of discomfort in order to nurture growth. And so the example is that, like, when we're at school and we're practicing academics, let's say you're practicing mathematics and you're trying to strengthen your brain and its conceptual understanding and its ability to calculate, let's say you're working on your times tables. Well, the next week, they're not going to expose you to some super high level jet engine mathematics that you can't even begin to get started on. Like, it's just way too far out of the realm of being able to productively engage with in that moment. What we do is, it's the same idea with resistance training. It's this progressive overload. And you're not overloading yourself too much. You're overloading yourself the right amount. It's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but it's not so much that you can't do it if you stretch yourself just a little bit. And obviously you don't want to stretch yourself so much that you injure yourself and then you can't engage with it anymore. But you do want to stretch yourself. And that stretch tends to be uncomfortable. Dude, I have no idea where I am. It's beautiful though. We're just going to keep going. What's the worst that could... Don't say it. Don't say it. Where are we going? Which path are we choosing? This one? Or this one? I think this one looks like it goes towards the river. I tend to like rivers, so here we go. I almost always like rivers. I don't know why I wouldn't. I don't know, this is a bit... Here's a challenge we're facing right now. Walking around with all sorts of cords. Hanging, swanging, going through a bunch of branches. Making our way down to the river. It's nice. It's very nice. Okay, let's see. Really got to be gripping the ground right here. It's super steep. Little pause in the conversation. Oh, it's beautiful here. Really nice. Check out all these little flowers. I don't know what they're called. I just learned recently. Forget-me-nots? Maybe? Who knows? Oh, there's a little river spot here. We're getting closer. And then we'll continue what we were talking about. Or I was talking about. Here we go. Yup. There it is. We made it to the river. Little something for me to stand on. Really nice. Really chill. I'm gonna try the water. Sort of cold. Only a little. I don't know how much the microphone picks up, but there's an oriole singing above me somewhere. Maybe you can hear him, maybe not. But now that I'm stood here and I'm looking at my feet on the ground, I'm thinking about how grateful I am for all the times I expose my feet to the right amount of acute discomfort. Because now I get to have this natural experience where my feet is on the grass, I can dip them in the water, I don't need to worry about getting my shoes wet. And if you're in the game, you understand grounding and that electrical. I don't really understand it that well, so it's I think it's like a sharing or a flowing of electrons between the charge of the earth and the charge of the human body. And it all makes sense to me because, I believe that most of our human evolutionary experience was foot on ground. I don't think we had shoes for most of the time. So there's something good about this. And obviously it feels good. I can just feel it right now. I don't really got to think about it. It's just great. All right, we're going to get back on the trail, back to where we were. Back up a little bit of a steep incline here, so be prepared for some huffy and puffy. It's good to watch the ground sometimes. Almost stepped on a bee, but we're aware. We got our animal vision. We got hunter eyes. I know I heard that term somewhere. I believe that's like when you're outside and you're being active, you're freaking locked in. You can see everything the same way you would if you're having to be hunting, seeing movements, little details. I feel it. And you know what I'm thinking is that for those of us who experience a kind of embarrassment or self-consciousness if we're looking like or doing anything obviously different from the majority of people, it's also a great practice of exposing ourselves to discomfort when we wear, minimal or like toe shoes that look kind of funny, or we go barefoot on the walk and people are looking at like, what are you doing? And they might think all kinds of things, but again, for me at least, I believe it's worth it to work on thickening that skin, not worrying so much about what the Gen Pop thinks of what I'm doing. And partly is because so someone in the primal movement community named Deb posted something in the forum, and it was something that said, I'm going to paraphrase, but it's like, it is nothing profound to be well adjusted to a sick society. And I heard that and I went, dang, that just sums up a lot of my motivation and willingness to maybe do some things that, go against the status quo. And in my own experience, I've perceived that and seen that and felt that to be totally true. In my life, when I was trying my hardest to fit in and follow the general populace standards, was my most depressed. And it's not good. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to do that. And I don't have to, but what it requires or what it might ask from me to make myself feel as healthy and good as I can is to stand out from the population or be a little bit different. And maybe that means I don't fit in with certain people, or some people don't understand. And that's a price I'm willing to pay. Because again, those are relatively short-term, acute discomforts. And I'd rather that than a chronic discomfort like depression or like high-level anxiety, or chronic illnesses in the body or chronic pains in the body. And that brings up, that makes me think of our relationship with training and rehabilitation, and maybe particularly movement training. Because what we're doing is, it can be uncomfortable, like it can be a muscular burn. It can be a really incredible stretch that can be challenging. There's a lot of feeling associated with it. But what it is an engagement with the here and now. It's an engagement with the present moment with the intention of relieving some of that discomfort that just attaches onto us day by day, sticks to us, feels like it becomes a part of our body. And I think that's why people can get so attached and identified with the discomfort or the illness or the diseases in their body, is because it's there and it's so pervasive chronologically with the body for so long. It seems as if it's forever. It seems as if it's permanent. It seems as if it defines the body or defines the person in some way. And obviously I can't speak on all instances of discomfort or pain or illness or disease, but if you're anything like me, then approaching the discomfort of here and now has been the answer to relieving the discomfort that feels like it hangs over me and that feels like it follows me everywhere. It couples so beautifully with the idea of delayed and instant gratification, and I think that concept is something that's a little bit more talked about, a little bit more in the mainstream, because I think we're all understanding just how instantly gratifying things like the internet, social media, short form videos, video games, all that stuff is. And we're realizing that it's ruining our attention span. It's having an impact on our health. It's having an impact on our presence. And we actually have a lot of examples for times where delayed gratification was obviously a really healthy choice for us. That could even be in the world of finances. Like sometimes delaying your spending in pursuit of a larger long-term goal, can yield the kind of outcomes that you want to see, as long as you just stay consistent and stay disciplined. Then we see the value of that for sure. And I think the same kind of thing is happening with the human body in these physiotherapy, rehabilitation, biohacking, optimization worlds. Is like, all right, what kind of things can we do here and now that are going to bolster our future and make us robust and happy and healthy? And so I love to think about, I'm on a deer track right now. And just letting you know I'm on a deer track. There's a bunch of deer footprints in the mud. This is where I like to be, sharing the track. Boom, staying in the lane, letting the plants do their thing. But this idea of exposing oneself to discomfort in the moment in favor of alleviating long-term discomfort, it's a pretty simple one. I think most people know it, but I think it's worth really reflecting on and understanding how it fits into our day-to-day, and then maybe even dissecting our day-to-day behaviors and the kinds of things we choose to do, and asking ourselves, is what I'm doing right now going to alleviate discomfort now, which is necessary sometimes. Holy moly, I got like 4 ticks, 5, 6 ticks on my leg. Wow, that's a lot. Maybe I should leave this spot. Yeah, I gotta move. There's like 10 ticks on my legs. All right, we're making moves. Okay, we exposed ourselves to acute discomfort, but now there's a little piece of chronic discomfort crawling up my leg. So here's me avoiding that, and probably gonna have to pause and do a legit tick check, because not trying to have any sort of long-term moments going on. But yeah, I'm glad that they're a little bit ticklish, so that way I could feel them on me. Holy moly, they just keep stacking up. Wow. Maybe this is why people don't come down here. You know, it makes sense that there's a bunch of deer ticks on the deer path, I suppose. So, you know, what did I expect, really? Wasn't really thinking about it, to be honest. I'm just out here. Just out here in the bush, doing my best. And sometimes my best puts ticks on my legs. So, you know, that's my little reflection right now. Sometimes when you try your best, you still get ticks. And that's okay, as long as we deal with it. And I'm going to have to expose myself to another moment of acute discomfort, because I'm going to have to find somewhere out in this public park to strip down, video myself relatively naked, check myself for ticks, and then continue on. So we got a bunch of moments of I'm gonna make a little compilation of how many times I've said acute discomfort. But that's what this episode's all about. So here we are, out in the bush, talking about it, living it while talking about it, all while moving my body, which was a big intention for the creating of this episode. None of them appear to have made it very far up my body, so that's a W. Stacking dubs all day. Ticks should be worried about me, frankly. And that's just the mindset that we have to go towards our discomforts and fears with. Is my fears should be more worried about me, to be honest. And if you don't know this video, you should definitely go search it up. I would just Google search "help the bear." I would just Google search that. Go watch that. And you'll know what I'm talking about. That's the vibe. That's the vibe we got to be on. You got to help the bear. Don't help me, help the bear. If I'm being honest, I don't really know how much more I have to say about this idea. If I keep going, it's probably just going to be jibber jabber about what I'm doing out here in this forest, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it's kind of nice to go deeply into a conceptual idea and then just take in the beautiful surroundings of the moment right now. And maybe that's the balance I'm looking for. Maybe that's what I need to feel good. Something I will say about this area that I'm in, and even specifically on this trail in particular, is that this was one of the first places where my love and understanding of my belonging and being a part of nature really strengthened and really brought me back to a place of, I guess in a way, knowing myself. For a long time, it was like the outdoors was, you know, a hobby or just like another thing, I guess. But there's a time in my life about 4 years ago where I just started coming outside on my own again and just started being in these places that felt and looked and sometimes sounded. Sometimes I can hear cars, but remote. And there was something unexplainable about how it felt. It just felt like I was where I was supposed to be. And I know I'm not alone in feeling this and understanding this because, well, obviously, it's our makeup. We are a biological animal who is built by this natural world around us. And remembering that has brought me a lot of joy. It has relieved a lot of my pain. And it has brought me closer to myself, and through that it's brought me closer to others. And so for this place, I'm really grateful because we are near cities and developments. But there are people out there who not only acknowledge the power and validity of our connection and belonging with the natural world, but have actually dedicated a lot of their time and energy to making sure that places like this exist and they're kept and they're even nurtured, because a lot of this was agricultural land that they've replanted with native plant species. And and I think without having to introduce them, it brought back wildlife. Wildlife found its place again. And just like me, I found my place again because of spaces like this. And not just having a space like this or coming through it, going on a walk with a bunch of wires and and phone, but not coming with music, not coming with something else to do, and sometimes not even being here with anybody else, but just myself. And just really giving myself no other option but to take in how it feels to be here, how it feels to be in the outdoors, how it feels to have the sun on my skin, to feel the wind, to hear the songs of the birds, to see the variation of the landscape, and how even with the smallest variations, the plant life changes, the animal life changes. Go a little bit deeper into the forest, you're close to the ravine, there's like hardly any birds. But you start the walk on the edge of the forest, a lot more activity. It just feels like being outside turns on this different switch in the body. It's like it's like these dormant genes, like these genes that have gone dormant from being in the city, turn on and express themselves. Like I said, like that idea of like the hunter eyes, it's like my vision is behaving differently now that I'm outside. My peripheral, I'm more so in my peripheral, and I'm more sensitive to small movements. Being able to see the little fluttering birds and different little butterflies and insects and snakes sometimes, frogs. And not only that, but walking without shoes is demanding that my body interacts with the environment in a different way. If you ever go walking through the forest without shoes, notice how differently your foot lands on the ground. It's really not a fun thing to do, to be heel striking super hard, like walking on peg legs over the forest floor, because you're really going like hard and aggressively at the ground, and you may not be able to anticipate what that's going to feel like, or if there's something sharp beneath you. What I find is that my foot instead likes to either receive the ground on the forefoot, so like on the ball of my foot, or with my whole foot almost at the same time. And I think that's because with a bigger surface area, like let's say my foot touches the ground all at the same time. I'm not putting a bunch of pressure down on one point, and my foot's able to sense if there are any sharp points underneath my foot, and I can actually adjust where my weight is bearing onto my foot so as not to put all the weight and pressure down onto that sharp point. And if you want to experience what I'm talking about, go find some gravel, take your shoes and socks off, and try walking over it with your feet. You'll notice how much more comfortable and safe it is to walk over that gravel, placing your whole foot down and touching it and sensing it before letting your weight load down onto that foot. I wouldn't advise this, but if you really want to, you can try heel striking on that gravel and just see how uncomfortable it is. I would not recommend that. This is not medical advice. And again, even with the forefoot, like that front of our foot, that springy part, that can touch down on the ground first, and there's a little bit of give. There's like a little bit of give before our weight goes on it. And you'd be surprised how quick your nervous system is to pick up on the differences and nuances of the texture of the ground. And it's because we're built for that. It's because our bodies are literally designed specifically to be moving barefoot over varied terrain. Now, does that mean that we just walk on anything and everything, even if it's painful? No, obviously not. But really, our feet are able to handle a lot more than we give them credit for, or we give them opportunities to, because instead we've put shoes on them, and that shoe does the job of protecting our foot against the ground instead of letting our foot strengthen and giving our nervous system a chance to engage with the environment and to adjust accordingly. And really, at the end of the day, we're all individuals who have the right and the power to make the choice that is right for us when it comes to our body. And so if you're someone who doesn't want to or see the value in walking barefoot, that's totally okay. We just have to have the awareness of what the consequences are of that. The same way I have to be aware of the consequences of walking barefoot. I could stab my foot on something, legitimately. Or I could stub my toe super bad. I might step on a bee and get stung. Okay, knowing these consequences, am I willing to still engage with the trail barefoot? My answer today is yes. Is my answer yes every day and every time? No. Because sometimes I don't feel like it, or sometimes I do a walk and I challenge my feet a lot and they need a rest for a little bit. And so we're always trying to figure it out, always trying to, just always trying to find that balance. Always trying to find the balance of how much is the right amount. And, it's a game of call and response within ourselves and in our own body. And it's a fascinating game to play. And so I'm kind of at a point in the trail where it's beautiful, it's sunny, and I'm running out of things to say. But I've really enjoyed where I'm at. I've really enjoyed having this conversation. And I've really enjoyed doing this walking and moving podcast. And honestly, I'm getting a legit forearm workout from holding this selfie stick. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Sometimes these solo episodes don't need to be so long because I finished my topic, I'm just rambling, and now it's just time to spend time with the forest. And also check my body for ticks, so that's going to be my MO right now. I want to thank anybody who's watched or listened. If you have anything to say, any questions, any comments, please send them my way. This has been episode 23 of Julian's Lightroom. I will catch you on the next one.